You're very welcome along to the two-man wall with Johnny Ward and Adam Russell. And Adam Russell is absolutely buzzing for the fact that international football is nearly going to go on a long hiatus after this week. But with that in mind, we're going to give you some selections for Euro 2020 if it ever takes place. And that'll be Euro 2021, obviously. But Adam is probably a bit more energized by some fascinating Premier League ties this weekend. The thing is, Adam, you're an England fan. Watching England at the moment, generally you're playing well. You're beating teams that are inferior quite comfortably. There's nobody at the game, not much atmosphere. Being an Ireland fan, we've scored 1 goal in 7 games. So tonight's game against Bulgaria, with 2 effective second teams out because of coronavirus and so forth, is absolutely massive for us, even though it really shouldn't matter at all. So I guess it's priorities and all that.
Yeah, I guess Southgate's always been criticised for his style of football, particularly over the last sort of really since we came back from this restart. Really, during the Euro qualifiers, we played a 4-3-3, and we were quite free flowing, quite attacking, scored quite a few goals. So then it was a little bit odd to see him revert back to the sort of 3-5-2, 3-4-3 for the Nations League, which I think people have just seen as it's a little bit too defensive for a team that actually our strength really is our attacking players. It's particularly obviously the strikers and the wide players is probably our strongest area really, apart from maybe right back as well. We've got about 10,000 of those. But I think what is good is, I've said it many times and I've maligned England managers in the past for this, but we always go into tournaments with, firstly, no idea what our best 11 is. It happened under Hodgson, happened under Capello, it happened under Sven. We didn't know what formation we were going to play. We didn't know who was in our first 11. So I think what Southgate's doing is he's laying it out now. We're going to play 3-4-3 in the Euros, and particularly against the big teams, we're going to look to absorb the pressure, keep the ball when we can, and be lethal on the counter-attack. But I think we should have a look at the Euros market, Johnny. I'm interested to hear if you've got a couple of selections from that as well. I picked out someone who I think is the obvious winner, and maybe a cheeky each way shout. Star paying for a finalist, half odds here. So decent one. If you think there might be a bit of a surprise at this summer's Euros to pick out one at a big price.
Yeah, well, let's go ahead. So before we do, I think basic point here, England should just basically build a team around Jack Grealish, as simple as that sounds. I think he's going to be absolutely sensational. But let's hear your two first. Now, obviously, we're still slightly up in the air about this tournament, where it's going to take place, will it go ahead as planned, and so forth. But on those assumptions built in, you have a fairly steady fancy at 11-2 and one at 66s as well.
Yeah, I think the obvious selection is France at 11-2. Just the strength in depth that they've got is phenomenal. They could pick probably 4 squads to go to the Euros that would all be capable of competing to the latter rounds, but they've just got everything, in my opinion. They've got unbelievable quality in midfield, great defenders, and obviously they've got the likes of Griezmann and Mbappe going forward, who are just going to terrorise international defences as they did at the World Cup. Obviously, tournament football is difficult, but for a winner, if I'm picking one, I'm not sure I can look much further than France.
Yeah, well, that's fair enough. They have massive quality. They have a bit of previous, obviously, and I guess France, Belgium, to an extent, Germany, and maybe England, sort of on a par.
I'm really not having Germany.
No.
Even before last night, I've been sceptical about the quality of the German.
A new low, said.
Yeah, a new low. Yeah,
I like that.
But they were awful last night. And I think defensively, that's where they're going to struggle. That's where they've lost a lot of their senior players from sort of their team of a few years back. And I think it was a difficulty for them against Spain last night, losing 6-0. But I think when it comes to the tournament, that'll be where they struggle as well. England, obviously, as an England fan, it's hard to ever say that we should go into a tournament expecting to win it, because I just don't think we've got the experience in the squad. For me, it's England sort of semi-final would be the benchmark, and I can't really see us getting much further than that. But I picked out a cheeky each way shout. I think Denmark.
Yeah, let's have it.
Denmark, they really impressed me when they beat England. They were very organised, very disciplined positionally, and they had just enough.
Yeah, I'll take a pop at Russia with the potential that the actual tournament could end up in Russia. Yes, I know that's speculative stuff. They're a massive price, and then Italy as well. I think Italy haven't lost in 2 years, and they're just going to be very, very solid. Um, but that's probably the extent of my international football knowledge at the moment. My main worry is that Ireland can actually get a result at home to Bulgaria tonight, which is a little bit worrying. But that's where we're at. And we were supposed to be hosting this tournament, or some of it anyway, this summer just gone. I just want 2020 to end at the moment, basically.
I mean, probably the only good thing to come out of it, international football-wise, is England against Scotland in the groups. I think that's going to be a great day out. So
I was delighted for the Scots, to be fair. Haven't played in that many tournaments in the last couple of decades, really, and will give us a bit of interest over here as well as in Northern Ireland, because they went so close. And obviously, just to watch England and Scotland in a tournament that it's just going to be a bit strange, probably, I guess.
Yeah, especially if we get it at Wembley, shades of Euro '96.
Oh, they were the halcyon days. Do you even remember that?
I was only born in 1996, so
my God,
I never got to watch it live. But
they were the days.
I've watched it since.
I'd say my peak interest in football, like in my entire life, was around that time. It was just a magical, and I'm in Ireland, but it was just a magical summer.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully, obviously, things are a bit up in the air at the minute, but hopefully it's going to be another magical summer. The tournament, the format's been tweaked slightly, and we've got a few different teams in there, the likes of Scotland. So, yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting summer, and hopefully everything goes ahead as planned.
Let's get to the Premier League, because this is a fascinating weekend of action. The outrights at the moment: Manchester City 7-5, Liverpool 13-8, Chelsea 7s, Spurs 8. So maybe not giving an awful lot away there. Leicester at 28 would be probably one of the more interesting, and they face Liverpool. Now, this is fascinating because obviously Liverpool have had a defensive crisis, really. They've lost Salah to the coronavirus of late as well. Thiago may be edging back towards fitness, but this is obviously a great time for Leicester to play them. Leicester have already gone to Man City and absolutely battered them this season. And we also have Spurs v Man City, which I think is really going to be compelling in terms of, are Spurs actual legitimate contenders? Talk to me, Adam.
All right, let's start with Spurs and Man City, because let's be honest, who doesn't love a good Jose versus Pep clash on a Saturday? We love to see it, don't we? And there's not really many times in recent years, I wouldn't think, that Spurs have started a game above Man City in the league table, and a win would obviously give them an 8-point lead over Man City at this stage, which is obviously quite significant.
Have Spurs actually been playing that well, though?
No, I wouldn't say they've been playing that well. They obviously have won all the last 3 games, but 2 of those 3 were 1-0 wins. But I think that's what Jose needs to instill in that Spurs side, is exactly that. Is you still need to win games when you don't play well. And obviously for him, the foundation of that is keeping clean sheets, which is something that we've always talked about with Spurs, is probably what holds them back, is they've always had great players going forward, Kane, Son, Bergwijn, Moura, Bale. It's a great attacking group that they've got. It's just, can they keep out enough goals to go on and challenge? They get 2 clean sheets in their last 3. They've only conceded 1 goal in the last 3 Premier League games. So it seems like they're on the right track. And interestingly, Man City's problem is arguably the opposite of Man City's problem. Normally, they just don't seem like they can score enough goals. They've only scored 10 so far this season, compared to Spurs have scored 19. And I remember we discussed at the start of the season about how much they would miss David Silva, and I had made a cheeky wager with you that sort of come by January time, people will be saying how much City actually missed David Silva. And I think you can see it already in that the ball doesn't tick over the same tempo as it did when they had David Silva. They get it to feet from the back, and they play it to Rodri, and then they look for De Bruyne, and then it's kind of, can De Bruyne open something up? Whereas before, David Silva would keep the ball moving, keep the tempo ticking, and just move the opposition around, and he'd pick up those spaces that other players don't find. And I think they're really missing him at the minute. So I think it's down to the likes of Phil Foden to step into his shoes a little bit more and really sort of get a grip of that City team. I think in terms of the prices, I'm going to have to take Spurs on at 3-1. Currently 3-1 with Star Sports, with Man City at 4-5. And there's no value there for me in Man City. Obviously, Spurs beat City at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium last December. They beat them 2-0. You'll remember Bergwijn scored a nice goal. And I think it could happen. It could happen again. So yeah, I'm going to take Spurs on at 3-1. I thought an interesting builder bet that we could look at as well would be Spurs to win, both teams to score and Son to score any time, which comes out at 10-1 with Star Sports builder bet tool. So I think there's pretty good value there as well.
Yeah, that's definitely an appealing one with the form that he's in. Leicester visiting Liverpool. I didn't mention Trent Alexander-Arnold as well, because I think this is probably one of the key aspects of this game is Leicester are going to exploit Liverpool on that side, or at least try to. And Liverpool are nearly even money here. A shade of odds on, tips on 10-11. Obviously home advantage, not particularly important, but at the same time, I think when they last played Leicester at home, I seem to recall there was something like 4-9, 1-2. So we're living in a different world at the moment. But this is a key game, because if you could get Leicester, if you could somehow get Leicester and Spurs both winning, I think it absolutely throws the title race wide open in some respects. And at the same time, I think Liverpool have a lot of squad depth, and I could actually see them winning this game. So I'm not really sure where the value is.
I mean, I could definitely see Liverpool winning this. Obviously the defensive issues that they've got: no Van Dijk, no Trent, no Fabinho, no Gomez. Joel Matip might come back for them this weekend, which would obviously be a big boost to have a senior centre back in the squad. Interestingly, the outrights: Leicester 28-1. Can they win the league? Can they not? The obvious answer is, given what we saw in 2015, is yes. But it kind of reminds me of a similar situation we were in last year, where Leicester hit the ground running. They obviously were up there and thereabouts, and they just couldn't sustain it towards the end of the season. At the minute, they're 28-1 in Star Sports outright market to win the league. Interesting, I thought on this one, the each way terms are third odds for the top two places. So for me, 28-1 on Leicester is actually an interesting one, because they could easily finish second, given what we've seen so far and what we've seen from them in the past. They've got the players, they've got the squad, they've got enough. I don't think they've got enough to win the league this time around, but I think 28-1 is an interesting price if you're looking at the each way terms. It's sort of a similar situation to when they met in December as well. It was that one was at the King Power, but Leicester, were up there, Liverpool hoping to come and sort of knock them off their perch, and it ended 4-0 to Liverpool. It was a convincing win.
Yeah. Possibly one of Liverpool's best performances ever under Klopp, I think, that night. They were absolutely superb. Trent Alexander-Arnold in particular, but he is missing. And obviously, as we mentioned, Van Dijk, that issue there, and the other defensive problems that they've had with Gomez, obviously, and the fact that Leicester have 8 games, 6 wins, and the fact that they went to Man City, the fact that they're top of the table, and they have Vardy, who's, basically going to provide a lot of goals, particularly in sort of run-of-the-mill games. I just can't have Man City at the moment in terms of them being favourites for the league. They're 6 points behind Leicester, but they just don't look convincing enough in general play. They don't look convincing enough to sort of steamroll teams. But at the same time, with Liverpool, are they could you back Liverpool at the price? I'm not so sure.
Yeah, I feel like we've said this a few times now on the show, is that Liverpool are in pole position for me, and they're the favourite. I think, the price of City at the minute 75 is too short. I think, as we've said, they will have injuries defensively. The likes of Laporte can't stay fit. Ake recently picked up an injury on international duty. Ben Mendy is always injured as well. And then the issues that we've just mentioned about them potentially not being able to score enough goals. It's interesting that you mentioned about Leicester exploiting the gap left by Trent. It's likely that Neco Williams will maybe play it right back, or even Milner. And I actually picked out, just as an addendum to that, I thought Harvey Barnes anytime, score anytime at the weekend, 10-3. I think that's a reasonable price. I think he might be the person, rather than Vardy, that actually looks to exploit the gaps left on that right-hand side by not just Trent being out, but also Van Dijk, who often kind of covers in that space that Trent leaves behind.
Absolutely.
So if Harvey Barnes plays, I think 10-3 for him to score any time is a good price. But I'm still backing Liverpool in this one, to be honest with you. Even since they haven't lost a game since Van Dijk got injured, so for all the talk of them maybe struggling with injuries and everything, hasn't really come to fruition yet.
Well, I think the key thing, Adam, is that there hasn't been that much chat about Thiago actually not playing, and Thiago if you're looking at deficiencies elsewhere, where Liverpool were so reliant on those front players and how good Van Dijk and Alisson were, they're a bit different this season. And Klopp obviously, earmarked that by signing Thiago to have basically more of the ball. And they haven't been able to kind of dominate games in midfield maybe that much. The odd game they played very well, but Thiago coming back is more than a massive help in terms of offsetting the problems they have elsewhere. And I think people shouldn't lose sight of that, because when they have Thiago, they will be a much better team.
I think one thing to consider with Thiago is that he himself has had injury problems in the past. He missed quite a lot of Bayern Munich's games last season through injury. So I don't think they'll be able to get him to a point where he can play 40, 50 games a season. I think he's the kind of player that if they can keep him fit for the big games, like you say, when they want more possession and they want more of the ball, then he's going to be really important for them. But again, keeping him fit is going to be a challenge for them. So I still think Liverpool will win at the weekend. I've built another bet for this one. I'm going Liverpool to win. Sadio Mane to step into Salah's shoes and score any time. Over 1.5 first half goals, and then over 2.5 total match goals. And that comes out at 11-2 with Star Sports Build-A-Bet tool.
Lovely. So we have 11-2 and 10-1 selections on the Build-A-Bet for those two big games, which I have to say I'm really looking forward to. Anything from the other 8 games, just a kind of a quick glance. I like the look of Leeds versus Arsenal. I think that'll be fascinating. And obviously as well, Manchester United home to West Brom. United just kind of a strange team to get a handle on. They seem to be one step forward, one step back at the moment. But anything else you like?
No, I think, bear in mind, I've got Diogo Jota to score anytime, 7-5 in the Leicester Liverpool game as well. Obviously, with Salah being out, it's even more likely than it was previous that he'll play, and he could possibly play down the middle as well. So another one to keep an eye out for there.
Thank you very much, Adam.
Thank you, Johnny.
And enjoy the rest of the international fixture list, please.
I'll try.
Please just let Ireland even score. I mean, I've so much faith in this new management team, but we scored 1 goal in 7 games, and even I can't really blag my way through that. But in any event, enjoy the international football, and we shall all talk to you next week.